Welcome. It's June. I think everyone saw a lot of art. Everyone saw a lot of sun. There's a lot of not sun in the winter months. My name is Oge Izu. I'm an artist living in Brooklyn, New York, and this is the context presentation of the Living Skull of Oge Izu art project that I'm engaging and producing. Today, in discussing the context, we're going to unwrap one of the multi-layers, as I call it, of the Living Skull project. I think that the two pillars of the project would be the context and then myself, the subject. An artist picks up a canvas and a brush, and that's the medium. And for the time that it's being created, the artist and the canvas are like one thing, and then they separate and they become separate. That, in a sense, is the sort of synthesis of transformation in art when we create it, and when it is finished. Whether we just call it finished and put it in a page that we close and turn another, or it's released and published or viewed publicly. So I think that idea of completing a circle and creating another circle into infinity. So, once upon a pandemic of 2020, a certain someone had a certain intuition about a tide that was coming, as I sometimes, or they, we, me, may have. This assertion was that the pandemic was going to be a far more serious situation than anyone had asserted, number one. And number two, this situation would yield a situation that would make it really advantageous for my landlord to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze. So, in my wisdom of knowing this was coming, I knocked on the door very delicately with 6 tiny emails. And the reply that I, came back from those fools was very predictable. My assertions were correct, and then I quickly did a little ping pong and got them down to a certain amount, which was higher than they could legally do, but whatever. And they jacked up some people very high and pushed them right on out. So, I took this sort of spike in the rents and this assertion and this knock on the door and then the response, and I was like, well, I should go to Facebook and make an impassioned post that tells people how I feel, so I can be seen and let them know about the rising tide that I see, so they too can maybe jump in and, maybe swim with me. And it was pretty effective. I mean, I'm a decent writer. People seemed motivated by the paragraph or so that I wrote, kind of calling out the building. I also called out that it was time to form an organization. Called it in the air like an air ball. And so people got excited, and a certain guy who was very quiet in the building, who had been silent, became seen. And for me, that person being seen was my favorite component of the entire process. That wasn't the large amount of money that it led to withholding from them, all the pain and suffering, and the lawyers, and the sort of reflection of their greed and actions that it led to. I mean, really wonderful thing. It took time, but a couple of years later, we had done the necessary steps to create a very complicated problem for them. And predictably, they would hot potato the problem to somebody else so that they would not have a legal bag to hold, as it were. And they engaged a big, stupid company to pick up the money. Now, this is a very important step that I foresaw. When a big entity is in a state of risk because they have considerable commodity risk, they act in a very predictable manner to insulate themselves, because corporate entities seek to make a conglomerate that doesn't have a face. There's not a name, there's a brand. This is a way that people of wealth can hide wealth, and they can also hide ownership. So that's what that is. When the second company was engaged, I noticed a very serious error that would systemically create a rift in the sort of solution that had arisen. And when I noticed this, I was also aware of other things that are possible within a system like this. Based on my assertion, I took a jump because of a necessity. And I think there was assumptions that my community may attach to that. And I may have under, over, or not shared anything at all, but I think assertions were definitely made and people saw me transform in a way from a person that was overweight, unhealthy, and had really consumed something sick. I can't really understate what choosing to do a profession can actually do to your life and your person. And much like the men and women right now on the ground for any nation fighting, picking up a weapon, choosing to be told what to do and to kill another human being, I mean, when those people come back, it's a very interesting litmus of that culture, that how they decide to treat people that honor them. And our country has a pretty storied tradition of use and discarding people and making excuses for why our dogmatic systems aren't more effective. But we're so great and there's so many options, and if you just work harder, you can afford those options. This is quid pro quo. If we reach for something that we need, that's a necessity. If somebody tells you that you need the thing and it costs money, that's a necessity too. Why should we work in a system of law where there's a language that those people study and learn to speak it so they can bamboozle and weasel and take in a language, in a sort of kind, friendly, rich folk language way that protects them? People that can afford lawyers are people that have the resources for lawyers, and the law is based on that. When you look at the country, the people that make our laws are basically clowns, that many of which that we see in our government choose to create bills that inhibit things, limit things, that do not create freedom but inhibit freedom. And in pissing away the currency they have in a voice, they don't focus on infrastructure, healthcare, or any sort of humanitarian endeavor. Instead, it's an ideological endeavor. We're a nation of people, and we're a nation of caring people that care enough to care about each other. But if we don't care about the people that we pay to make laws, and we follow those laws, who are we? This is the war of identity. I chose to do an audacious thing. It is no one's place to judge me or understand this. I have not explained it to anyone, and I will not. It's no one's place. My position in my community and my stance as a human being is my own business, and people's proclivity to that and assertion is theirs to make. I feel that some of the things that have been said and done, I think have been done in love and concern, and I think some of them in an underhand and not even conscious way have been very cruel. And I don't need to accept that because I'm not a foolish person. And I believe in speaking the truth. It's really the only thing worth speaking about anymore, as I think that profanity, negativity, and lies are not words that I can speak anymore. I've said enough, and I wish only to give back in positivity. So, it's June. And in early May, the cowards finally found a way to get something in motion. And as soon as I waited and held my breath, as they had probably waited in terror, wondering why I was holding my breath for 9 months, I knocked back. I walked to the new Apollo Diner in downtown Brooklyn where my father had taken me as a child. I walked across the street to the kindest courthouse I've ever entered and met the nicest people I've ever met, who smiled back at me and let me know it was okay and put me in a line with other people and let me know it was okay. And they gave me a date and I felt okay. And then I went. And I decided that it was time to take on this big thing. In my journey, I had combined skateboarding and monasticism with my whole daily life. And a big part of this was a physical building that would lead to my body being a temple that was strong enough to take to a place that I thought was special. That place is the Chelsea Pier. And I went there on a Tuesday with my boy Frank the Tank. Frank's a youngster who takes huge chances and really wears his heart on his sleeve, and I think that he's a true human. I took a shirt I'd carried for 20-something years. I gave it to him because he rides for that company, and I care enough about him and about that company and what that means to put that on a person. Skateboarding is not about money, it's about honor, and it's about style. It's commitment. We made a commitment to each other, and I committed that to him by giving him something old and something invaluable. Much like a trick, anything else. I cut 6 lines in a very deadly serious concrete bowl at 47 years old. And I got in and out a couple times, and I did stack one time when I knew it was time to stack. And when I did stack, I gazed in the eyes of a New York legend, the son of a legend and king of our sport. That guy gave me a pound when I left, and it meant a lot. It meant a lot that I was able to give my friend the honor of dedication. My phone exploded as I said goodbye, and I walked away from the pier in the sunset, and it was time to go back to Brooklyn. I don't look at my phone when I'm out, as it's not time to be present with the world when I'm on my skateboard. But when I was on the train on my way back to Brooklyn, I looked at the messages from my people, letting me know that the building had discarded my people, letting me know that 4 days after I filed a legal thing, they had hot potatoed the building to get another company to pick up a bag. And the hilarious part that we need to really pay attention to here, y'all, is that the property management company previously was very detailed about notes and putting things on doors and making sure that things were clear. The new company came in and said, we mean business by firing someone to show us who are real, not picking up the trash well and photocopying some things and hanging them up. I do believe that's a very lazy way of collecting money. And if they're concerned about collecting my money, which just over time turns into a bigger hole, a vacuum, if you will, that they can reach deep, deep, deep inside, but there's only a bunch of time and a bunch of questions and a bunch of Oge-Izu-ism for them to find. And what they find is a reflection of their own act. I know that people have made deals with them and really been effective with being mean to them. And that's really benefited them. But I don't see why it's so beyond reason for a person of my indelible nature to be anything less than abundantly inclined to do everything and anything in my fucking power to earn a home for my children, which means in New York, you need to get your rent to the lowest possible place humanly possible. I advised the homie on this years ago and told him when his mama had the people come and knocking that 5, 10, 15, 75, 150K was not enough money. And you know what? Despite him kicking and stomping and being mad, they put his mama in a new apartment, they fixed her apartment, and they made it real cheap for the rest of forever. Now, I'm going to tell everyone a little secret. No one has anything when the world comes to an end, or your life comes to an end, that you can't fit in your hands or inside your body. So no matter what sort of context you choose to live and die in is completely up to you. And you can definitely work hard to leave wealth for people. But be careful of what you consider valuable, because the values that we carry and that we raise up high, they generate things. They can make property, they can make people. I made the living skull of Oge-Izu for my children. My name is Oge-Izu, 314 NYC, Kongson Pax et Eternia, Ordo Ab Keo. Yada.